What you're about to see is the first of a two-part series with famed track announcer Larry Lederman. Larry hasn't been behind the mic in quite some time, but during Hambletonian week, we had a chance to sit down with Larry to talk about how he is recovering from cancer. We also got to see some of his witty ad-libbing skills.
Around the final turn, boat race, Lobel has the lead. Here comes Lou Albano, and on the outside comes Vince McMahon as they come for home, and neck to neck, and big sweeping move on the outside. Here comes Michael Carter. It's Michael Carter now with a big sweeping move now, taking over the lead. On the inside, Vince McMahon fighting back. They're neck to neck, nose to nose. The fans are going berserk. And as they come to the finish, it's Michael Carter by a nose.
So how did you get into the business of harness racing, and what got you started?
My father worked really hard, and he used to like to go to the track at night once in a while. My parents were friendly with the owners of Yonkers at the time, who were the Tannenbaums. So my father used to say once a week, "Oh, let's go get the passes. Let's go." But I wasn't allowed in because I was too young. It was a strict 18. Okay. So with that being said, so I kind of like when I was young, I wait for them to get home and I see the results. And on the radio, they used to play the results, you know. And I did that. So I was the Yonkers and Roosevelt, the Buddy Gilmore days, the McNutt, the Websters, the Fontaines, the Del Inscos, and I kind of got interested in it because, and there was no competition then. There was no casinos. You know, I didn't care for the flats. And it was really, harness racing was, you know, bada boom, bada bing. And we had a show on Saturday night. The OTB had a race show, which was Dave Johnson and Stan Bergstein. So I was watching that. And then slowly it built up. And I worked for my father for a while. I didn't like I didn't like the business, but I liked horse racing, and I wanted to do announcing. So I said I put that into a blender, announcing and horse racing. What came out, unfortunately, for some people say, came out this. So I became an announcer.
Now, obviously, we all know you for your witty and fun race calls with a little bit of comedic value, and we'll touch on one that I remember specifically here in a minute. But when did you start to put that into your race calls, or how did that comedic spirit?
Well, I started in Atlantic City. Once upon a time, I worked at Catch a Rising Star doing stand-up comedy. I drove a cab at the time, and I did a couple of stand-up things. In fact, if you were good, they brought you back on Friday and Saturday night. Well, they brought me back on a Saturday night. I was the first act. George Wallace was second, who I still think performs in Vegas, and the third one was Robin Williams. So I went back for a couple times, and I says, you know, I really like horse racing, and it's an entertainment sport. You know, John Miller, you know, I say he fools around. There's a time and a place for everything. You got to have some laughs. You got to do some imitations. I said, why should I do it for this sport? You know, and I was doing the thoroughbreds at the time as well. And I said, why not? As long as there's no one gets hurt in the race, and because you know, obviously it's a super dangerous sport. And with that being said, I said, if I throw some humor into it, yeah, listen, nobody loves you. Nobody loves everybody, and nobody hates everybody. So there are some people who don't like it because they die hard and they'll lose money. But you know what? That's not my fault. So that's what I did. I threw a changeup when everybody would just throw fastballs, and you know what? I would say for the most part it worked, but I thought I was adding something to the game, not hurting it. And you know, sometimes, but some of the stuff I didn't even plan. I mean, sometimes I said things and I says, that was pretty good, Larry. You know, there was a horse named, I used to, at Atlantic City is where really it all started. And that was the only night thoroughbred track, so I was like the only show in town at night when people were watching it. And there was a horse named Lord of the Night, and I used to shorten the horse's name up. And it was the Lord and the King, the Lord and the King, and the Lord, and I said at the end, give it to the Lord. You know, and I didn't even realize what I said, and that was pretty good, you know. At least I thought it was good. And anyway, so we had fun with it. I was, you know, and I welcomed people that didn't exist, but we had fun at Atlantic City.
Obviously, the YouTube hit, I think, is the Dejiri
Yeah,
Walla Bing Bong
right.
call. Where in the world do you? First of all, do you remember the horse's name?
Sure.
Second of all, where was I can't even remember where the horse was from.
He was from Australia, and the first time, it's hard to believe, but I didn't pick up I don't have no idea, when the race goes off, I had no idea who's in the race. I don't even look at the program. And, you know, I use the old cheat sheet that we used in school like this, you know, I look over. But there's ways, you know, you being an announcer, there's ways around it. So I said, what in the name of, is it this horse? I didn't look at it. So I went, right? I didn't even know what I was saying. And then, you know what, it became a hit. So I ran with it, even though I knew the horse's name like the Jerawa, which I come to find out I think is like a park in Australia.
And a man this tag, the Jackie Wuka Halalabuna, is fourth and KW champion. The other three have made breaks. Here comes the Jawi Hulamuna Bakahana. And the Jawa Hula Mana Hakapana has taken the lead from Quantum King Leo. The Jiki Hulamukahane Bekahati winning it all.
Well, one day after I called him like this 5 straight weeks, the owner calls me from Australia and he says, mate, I know you don't know me. He says, but I want to give you the right pronunciation. And I said, respectfully, I do know the pronunciation. He goes, oh, I see. Got it, mate. And that was the whole conversation. So I ran with it. And there was the Pookie Hookie Pirate. And that was another one I named them. I named the Plumber Pirate, the Pastrami Pirate. I named them everything. So we ran with that for a while. But people expected it.
A few years back when you were first diagnosed with cancer, what kind of went through your mind after that?
You know, it's funny, I'd never been sick before. I guess we all one time could say that, you know. And this was in 2011. Yeah, 2011. I took my daughter's car to get the oil changed. I went there and all of a sudden I just started falling back and I never felt anything like it. And really only by the grace of God, I was very lucky because I was between 2 schools when it happened. And all of a sudden I started falling backwards. And I am not religious, nor do I believe in it, but I believe in it now. All of a sudden, a voice was saying to me, Larry, let go, it's okay. And I saw a bright light, and I said, this is the end of the show. I must be having a heart attack. Anyway, to make a long story short, they got me. They took me to the hospital. Everyone thought it was a heart thing. They brought me back, because I was gone at the time, and they brought me to the hospital, and one doctor said, there's something wrong, it's not his heart. And that's when they gave me an MRI for my brain, and they found the brain tumor. And the first 2 calls I got, and there were Cat Manzi and Harry Landy, and how came that? And I'll always remember that. And from then on, we had to fight a battle.
Obviously, your health has been a concern to everybody in the industry since you were diagnosed a few years ago. Talk to us a little bit about that battle and where you are currently.
Okay.
Currently, we got some good news.
What happened was, 2011, I was diagnosed. I had went on disability because I was working at Freehold at the time. And so they put me on this stuff, and I was sick every single day I was on it. But I don't know what it did, and they put me on heavy radiation at the time, the combination of both. And for 6.5 years, it sat dormant, but it was still malignant, inoperable. Inoperable because it's in a terrible place. It runs everything in your body. It's called the motor strip. And if it was over this amount, they could have operated on it, but they couldn't because you become paralyzed. Well, for 6.5 years, it was like a tenant living there, and I went for MRIs every 6 months, and it just sat there and never grew. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, maybe I dodged a bullet. And I went for an MRI this past December, and it grew and went wild. And my oncologist, good old Dr. Ed, he said, Larry, we got to be proactive. Within a week, I was having brain surgery. And he tried to take out as much as he can, but he couldn't. And I said, whatever you do, I don't want to be paralyzed. Because if he touches the wrong thing, I'll be paralyzed forever. And I don't want, that's no way to live. That's existing, that's not living. They told me in March, I probably had a year and a half to go, because it was going to grow, no matter how they took out, because it had started spreading again. And they gave me 10 shots of it, and right now it's made it disappear. However, is it likely to come back? Yes, it's like a 50-50 shot. So every 3 months I have to go for MRIs. But the surgery itself just knocked the heck out of me. I'm always tired all the time. I'm good till like 3 o'clock. I got good speed. I'm like showing 55 half on the program, and the race went into 11, and I'm getting distanced. By the time the night rolls around, so I watch the Mets, and they're in worse shape than I'm in. So I watch them, the Yankees, and I'm very good with the remote control. In fact, if that was an Olympic event, I get the gold. But you know what? I had to hack it. I put up with it, you know. And the hardest part is like doing this alone, because unfortunately my wife passed away 4 years ago, and my daughter just passed away from insidious opiate addiction. So that was all going on, but we got to fight the fight. You don't give up. I always said it's better to have 16 in a blackjack game than a 22, Because once you're out of the game, that's it. You got to stay in it. So that's where we are right now. And do I think if I'm going to call again? I would say it's less than 50-50. Because I just don't have the strength to do it anymore. I see me filling in. In fact, I'm the 24th and 25th. I'm doing freehold. That's the first time I've called in over a year. So I hope that the mouth and the brain get together and make some sense of it all. But I don't see it full time anymore. This is taking too much out of me.